Okay, people. I'm using the X camera here, right? Anyway, I can't see how it's recording here outside of what's on the other side of the screen. Because remember, the screen goes out, right? So in the meantime, I think this camera's working. I'm making applesauce right now, so I'm going to have to get up in a second and stir it and then come back. But as I'm listening to this stuff going on in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge, right? And the various different people from various different organizations, whether they're church people or, um, you know, policing people or politicians or news reporters or whatever it is, right? I'm listening to everybody talk. And, the bigger message is people want, to come together and to cut back on this violence that's rampant within our communities all across the freaking continent. Okay? It's not just Baton Rouge. It's happening in Canada too. The thing is, as I listen to this stuff, obviously my heart goes out to people in general that are victim to violence, whether that's a civilian or a public servant. But as I'm listening to people put the call out for us to come together and and blah, blah, blah. It always goes back for me, people, these days anyway, with Uncle John. Like, nobody's standing up for Uncle John. And until we start rooting out the white-collar crime and holding these people that perpetrate white-collar crime, because it's legitimate, people. White-collar crime is real. That's why we have a criminal code. Okay? I don't know what the United States has, but I'm sure they have something similar. And the thing is, though, people don't prosecute what they can prosecute through the criminal codes, right? In terms of extortion, aiding and abetting, bribery, just all kinds of crazy crap. Fraud, right? Medical kidnappings, torture, right? Just the whole 9 yards. Trafficking, right? Everything that's happened to Uncle John. Nobody is stepping up to the plate to prosecute that white-collar crime. Because it's there, people. It's there. And because the way our justice system is set up, under the Bar Association with lawyers, unless you've got a lot of money, it's pretty hard to go off and get a freaking lawyer. So you're kind of like left you're left at a crossroad, at a T-section, right? You can go one way or you can go the other way. For me, I can go this way and forever be accused of all these things, people, just like I was accused of all these things with my grandson. The family was, we were such a bad family, and Andre had to be taken away for 15 months, and, we needed criminal checks, and I had to have supervised, top-of-the-line fucking, what is that called, supervised visits, and, just a whole bunch of bullshit. Just a whole bunch of bullshit to prop up a middle-class fucking system that is basically corporate welfare that lives off the taxes of the paying public. And within those unions, because it's more than one union, just like it's more than one individual, there is corruption. Corruption to get those pension plans. Corruption to get those life insurance policies paid out. Uncle John used to tell me all the time. Remember, he was a janitor within the provincial parliament buildings in British Columbia, Canada. He cleaned up after these people for 25 years. He knew what he was dealing with. And what he was dealing with was people that had 3 to 4 different pensions coming in from this past employment, from that past employment, from, serving in the Navy, and then they became a politician. And then they just added on more. And the thing about the government is the government supports the union, even if it's at arm's length and it tries to play union busting. All you have to do is go into the BC legislative fiscal fucking budget, right? Their budget. I gotta go stir this. Hold on a minute. I gotta stir. I'm not gonna burn my freaking applesauce over this. Hold on.
assisting with the investigation, and we will continue to do so until justice is served. Thank you.
Let me tell you what, this is truly a sad day in Baton Rouge as we now meet again behind senseless killings. We continue to ask the question.
Okay.
And continue to make...
They're having a sad day. But let me tell you something. In this household, we've been having a sad day ever since my birthday, February 20th, 2015. That's when they took John. That's when they said, oh, you know, that family has been abusing John for 30 years, people. John's sister has actually had the audacity, listen to this one, call up Royal Bank in January of 2016, which is what, six and a half months ago? And then tried to say to the bank that in the year 2000, when John couldn't get a credit card because he had already been bankrupt by his wife in 95, so it wasn't up with the 7-year term, okay? He bankrupted in 95, so by 96 he had been bankrupt, but he couldn't get no credit. He had a bad credit rating, right? So he hooked up with me. I put the application in and him as a co-signer so that he could start establishing credit. Oh, well, I guess the sister has decided that John was a retard. And that's what she told the bank. John was incompetent in the year 2000 to make those decisions for himself. Because she has totally overtaken every aspect of his life so that she could control his assets. Well, there's different factors within our society, whether it's the temporary care ward and the immigrant population that doesn't want to lose its employment and be shipped back overseas to the countries that they came from, so they enable the crooked frickin' union workers to do what they want with malicious intent, not caring who they affect. I'm talking about this white-collar crime that these people are not addressing right across the whole nation. They're not addressing it in the United States. They gave up on Mexico a long time ago, and they sure in the hell aren't addressing it out here. Because to the average person that has this stuff happen to them, again, you're at that crossroads. You either can live the rest of your life being accused of things and never charged with anything and being treated like a fucking criminal and a piece of garbage, you know, right? Through the banking system, through the healthcare system, through any kind of social safety net system, to go put an application in for a job, and they get wind that you abused Uncle John for 30 years, even though his family never stepped up to the plate in those 30 years, despite John taking a ferry and going back and forth for 22 of those years, taking the kids, spending time in their houses with the kids, calling the kids my grandchildren, so that John could spend time with his mother on her birthday, or visit Joan, because those were the only two people John went to go visit. First it was Joan, and then when Joan moved over here, John still took the time to take on a freaking bus, whether he went by himself. Well, he couldn't go by himself by that point, but he took Marcaine, he took ShaMay, he took Tisha to go visit his mother. Well, John's extended family housed him. So if he was competent in those days, why all of a sudden, after all these years, is this so-called sister calling up a bank in January 2016 saying that John was a retard in the year 2000 and that visa was a mistake, and therefore John is not responsible for it? And I'm still left holding the bag, because if I don't pay for it, they can't locate him. I didn't make the payment this month, people. They called me up asking me where the payment is. I said, well, since you canceled the card and you took away my credit limit, which I had already put a hold on anyway when this shit hit the fan, right? Why should I pay for it? Go after John. Go after his sister, right? You have the information there on file. Somebody called you. Go after them. Go find John. But we can't find him. We can't find him. We don't know where he is. Everything's third party. So therefore, you're still responsible. And if you don't pay, your credit rating is going to go down the tube. We're going to come after you with a collection agency. Okay. Are you listening to this, people? So, they've accused me of all these things with CIBC Bank. They got away with it. And now they've taken it over to the Royal Bank because they don't want to pay John's credit card because it's all more of a smear campaign against me. Right? So they can get away with whatever it is that they've fucking done. Right? Because I have to defend myself. Or just live with it for the rest of my life. That's the crossroad. I either defend myself or I live with this abuse from fucking government employees. This is a head nurse that works at a reputable hospital that overstepped her bounds because she knew how to do it, because she's already participated in it and has witnessed it with other families doing it to other people. And that's why these temporary care wards are just sorting out bays. Another form of white-collar crime. The poor people get pushed out onto the streets. And they wait for the ambulance to show up and Narcan their heart so they can run off and go do it again 2 days later. Right? That's your hospital. And an emergency freaking ambulance. Okay? For the homeless. If they show up. I have video of people talking about service workers in the homeless shelter telling them, don't touch the guy, let him die before the ambulance shows up. If he dies before the ambulance shows up, so be it, but don't try and save him. Well, John, with his little $3,000 plus inheritance money from his wife, more than likely through her superannuation life insurance policy that the Duncan clan failed to tell John about for 13 months, which is fraud, people. Fraud under the criminal code. This is what these people are protecting. And then they wonder why it's hard for the community to come together. Oh, we're at arm's length. We don't run the care wards. We don't run the child protective services. You know? We just do as we're told. And look what happens. Because they're part of that colluded group. They enable it to happen. They allow it to happen. Just like when my son went there looking for Uncle John. What did the police do? They sat down and tried to play counselor for a few minutes. With their gloves on. Standing there, you know, ready to pounce on my son at any minute. Crying as he's crying over his Uncle John, his Grandpa John, wondering why he was taken away, because we know John wouldn't have done it on his own. He told those people from day one, talk to Judy. No, they didn't want to talk to Judy because the family got in there and started making false accusations. And then the union workers jumped on board because it's just more money in the bank for them, people. In a roundabout, long way, it's just more money for them. White-collar crime that very, very, very seldom, ever goes to court. Because the ones that are supposed to take it to court participate in that white-collar crime. That's why it's called white-collar crime. Because it's done by professionals. Professional nurses. Professional doctors. Professional fucking lawyers. Professional social workers. Professional freaking police officers. So, for as much as they're asking everybody to start coming together and be all happy, I don't think it's going to happen until the white-collar crime starts getting rooted out. You have to root out the white-collar crime in order for the community to be able to stabilize itself and learn to get along and respect each other and be prosperous with each other in terms of live and let live, build on the quality of living. Instead of having a bunch of fucking predators running around preying on each other, on the weakest of the weak. And John was one of the weakest of the weak. So anyway, that's my feeling on what's going on down there right now. How come these people aren't standing up against white-collar crime?
All of a sudden, a wave is going to come over me, and I'm
okay, people. This is July 17th, 2016.
We don't change our heart.
I just came across this. There was a shooting in Louisiana, Baton Rouge.
And that's what I'm really
6 police officers shot.
That's why
2 or 3 already dead, 10 wounded.
All the people.
I guess it came from a small protest with the Black Lives Matter.
Right in back of the.
And this is live stream that I'm watching here.
Town gazebo. We want everyone.
It wasn't on my mind. Okay, what's on my mind is how do we combat depression as a collective society? Because there's just too many of us suffering from different levels of depression, right? Now I'm using my old X camera here, the one that Andre dropped, right? Because the other one I took to the pawn shop. Because I have no money, people, right? And, but I actually came across
families and friends connected to
this little organization, church-oriented, just a group of people that do breakfast and lunch for the people in the community that need it, right? And I guess in the evening, which is nice to know, in the summertime, they provide shelter beds to some degree. To what degree, I don't know. We'll do a follow-up. I met the acting director on an off day when she's normally not around, which she says she normally isn't. And it was nice to meet her, and she gave me some
I'm going to
bread.
go ahead and just cut in here,
So
because I know this
besides
guy's
that
talking
point,
about God and everything.
Hold on a minute. I just want to show you what I've been doing. Okay, we're going to come back to that. Just remember, this screen on this camcorder is broken, so... Okay, this is what I've been doing, people. Right? I'm using the resources around me. I'm trying not to get depressed. Okay? It's pretty depressing when you can't go buy groceries. Like, seriously. Okay? But I have a yard, and there's blackberry bushes around in the neighborhood where I live, including in my own backyard. So I've started to dehydrate blackberries, as you can see. Okay? That's a given every year, no matter what. Some years more, some years less. Because when you dehydrate these things, they are delicious. Right? You can make a sauce with them. You could, when you hydrate them after you dehydrated them, they are delicious. You can take a jar and make jam. You can make all kinds of stuff with this stuff. You can put them into muffins after they're hydrated, and they come out really, really tasty in muffins. So it's not something that I cook with a lot, but I like to have on hand, because I always like to think about long-term food storage. And I'm glad that I have done that to the degree that I've done it in this house, because it's what's getting us through as a family in terms of not starving to death in light of what happened to Uncle John. Now, I've already started to harvest potatoes, because we know I have a potato thief that likes to raid my potatoes. So whether it's the raccoons or whether it's the human or whether it's both, I don't know. All I know is I've already started to harvest potatoes. I do have some in the cold potato shed that I made with my son. And as you can see, right? Oh, there goes the screen. So I can't see very much, people. Right? This is where I'm flipping with the screen, and obviously it's getting worse. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just going to keep pointing the camera in the direction with my finger, and hopefully you're picking up on what I'm seeing what I'm not seeing. Okay? So the nice thing about growing potatoes is they're pesticide free. That's the nice thing about growing potatoes. It's a lot of work for what it's worth, especially if you've got a potato thief. right? So I've kind of started to harvest some of them a little earlier. This is what I got from my raspberry bush, plus what was eaten, right? And that's dehydrated. So you can multiply that by 3 times in terms of a flat. So you're probably looking at about $200 or so worth of prime opt bush raspberries that are dehydrated, that can be treated and used just as you would a blackberry or a blueberry. Garlic, I don't know. The growing season, even my landlady mentioned that her plants in her garden aren't growing that well. So the growing season in general hasn't been good. Some things yes, a lot of things no. A lot of browning of the leaves, a lot of spotting of the leaves. The ground is very dry, but there's not enough sun. There's a lot of cloudage. So, and then, of course, lots more blackberries. So these ones here, I'm either going to make a blackberry jelly or a blackberry jam. Oh, there's screen just came right back on. And last year, there was no apples that I had access to. I'm moving slow because of this camera. Oh, again, food storage. This is where food storage comes in handy. I have no money. I haven't been able to buy groceries for a long time. But as you can see, I bought this last year. So this is perfect for what I need today in terms of adding just a little bit of lemon juice into the applesauce that I'm going to make without sugar. And then I'm going to pressure can it because then the seal is a lot more stronger. I just want to point this out, people. Now, for, the naysayers, move this, everything else. I can't move, people. I don't have money to move. I couldn't afford to pay rent anywhere else. But do you see this? This is what comes out of my vent. Do you see this, people? Do you see? Oops, there goes the screen. Right? Since I've lived in this house, my vents haven't been cleaned. Not once. And I highly doubt that the vents were cleaned when they installed the new furnace. So, in part, this is what goes into my air. Because the house is very dusty. And with the yard being with the drainage tile problem, and that creates a lot of dust, right? Of course, that gets spewed around the house even more. And because the city has designated this area to be for condo development and that type of thing, homeowners are not wanting to do any landscaping to any degree in terms of, solving water drainage problems and that kind of stuff. So I'm left with a muddy yard and a dusty yard. But besides that point, I seem to be coming across a lot of fruit. So as you can see, I got apples there, I got apples there, and I got apples there, and I got about that much more in my fridge, and they're still falling off the tree, people. They're falling off the tree. In other words, nobody really wants them, right? Because they're falling off the tree, and they're just rotting. So before they completely fall off the tree and rot, I'm scooping up on a few. So this is what I'm doing today. I'm making applesauce, and I'm canning it, okay? And I'm going to be grateful for the things that I do have. I'm tired of, obviously, right? But at the end of the day, this is healthy food, and for somebody that has no money, I think I'm pretty blessed. And this is where, you have to take that and apply it to your depression and not think about the things that you can't change right away, right? Or ever change, like in terms of the backyard with the mud and the dust and water problems and the leaky porch and all the other problems that I have, right? Because I have a lot of problems. Right? We need to just stay focused on what we can do, right? And food security helps to break up depression. So, for any of these people living up in the States that are depressed because they're hungry and they don't have enough food, well, they need to stop and think about it. Just like I told my 22-year-old daughter every time she comes upstairs, which is every day, people, sometimes five times a day, getting food because she's not working right now and she's been trying to get a job and she hasn't been able to get a job, and she didn't, they denied her workman compensation for her injury on her last job, and it's just a bunch of runaround. But anyway, she's got a mom that feeds her because I do food storage. So for the people that don't do food storage, I suggest that they get up on the bandwagon and start, stockpiling on a few necessities, work with what you have. Don't be afraid to break out the canner, that kind of stuff. Let's see what they're talking about here before I stop this video.
Obviously, when things get bad, they turn to the clergy, and many times the clergy is very, you know,
I wonder if I'll get a
it's
copyright
like a
for
government
this.
response type.
I don't normally
You know,
do videos
bland
like this with other
message
people's
that's just kind of calling for peace and
screen
love and
captures or whatever you call
general
these things.
respect
Videos.
for humanity. But it's really not that just that. It is. And I think
else
he
do
did
they
touch
have
on it.
on
The
here?
corruption within the human heart,
Let's just see.
and the human heart is desperately wicked. It says.
I'm gonna take you
and
out
in
into
need
the
of
yard.
a transformation, and that's
I'm
the
gonna
part
take you out
of
into
what
the
the
yard
Bible really does teach about transformation of the
and
heart.
show you the daisies
And
that I brought
there's
home.
nothing going to be answering these questions of what's coming to America and the
But
world,
I
for
have
that
to
matter.
move
It's not
slow
just
with this
America, but
camera.
it's the whole world.
So this is the
and
one
I
we're
truly
watching
believe that
right
what
now.
we're seeing is an unfolding prophetic
What's this
scenario
one?
that is ushering us into the very last of the last
Three Baton
days.
Rouge
The last of the
police
last days
officers
are
dead.
upon us.
That's
And
not
if
good.
if you know your Bible and you know prophecy, you're going to see
Hold
that
on.
these
I'm
things are
not trying to
unfolding
promote religion
at
here,
great
people.
Would lead the conversations and opening up the dialogue, and not only that, but let's talk about changing policies. Let's talk about
Hold on,
getting
I'm
these
talking-
types
I'm
of weapons
listening
off
on
of our
something.
street. I talked about it the other night on HBO. There's nothing we could do if someone passed by here with that type of weapon.
All right, we lost reception there, but we will check back in with Andre Morrow outside of the Triple S convenience store where a small crowd has gathered. Again,
Which I do want to iterate, they've asked you not to do.
not to do that, yes.
So some of the very people asking you not to do are out there. So let's just be calm in that.
Hold on a minute, I'm
and let's take it back
videotaping.
to what physically happened here with those 6 officers shot, Lauren, and kind of reset the scene. I think for the
Yes,
viewers here.
around 9 o'clock this morning, shots were fired. 6 officers shot as we learned more information from law enforcement. 3 are dead. Here is video from a witness near the scene earlier today. You can take a listen here. And as the day went on, the weather moved in. We heard different information. Those officers at Our Lady of the Lake right now, also a sheriff's deputy, we're told, being treated with non-life-threatening injuries at Baton Rouge General. 1 suspect is dead, according to law enforcement, 2 others at large, but it is possible those 2 suspects could be connected to an incident we saw in Port Allen. Our Karen Shallow reporting on that. But take a listen to this video.
Okay, so we'll listen to the video. Oh my.
All right, and at the end of that video, you hear just a succession of shots there. Very chilling that when you know that 3 officers have been killed as a result of it.
So those are just like news articles. I'm not really too
Let's
keen.
suppose that you're writing a really important email to a colleague.
I'm not really too keen on how this stuff works.
And federal agencies, so it has FBI, ATF, as well as Homeland Security investigations.
People
Fortunately,
streaming
if that's the right word to use
into
here,
other- like, this
they are
is
nearby.
Fox
They've been
News
mobilized
Live.
and they've been directed to
People
assist
streaming
in any
on
way
their
possible. The
channels
ATF, for example,
into
is
other
on
news
scene
channels.
with their dogs and their special response team, trying
Right.
to identify
So this is what
how many
this is.
weapons were used, the type of weapons that were used,
Okay.
and
So
who
we know
owns or
this
whether
is
these
happening.
were stolen weapons in
We
the
know
commission
people are
of
depressed.
these shootings, Martha.
Right? We know people are acting out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right?
Let's go back to Shepherd in New York.
Martha, joining us now on the phone is the former Louisiana Governor, Bobby Jindal.
Okay.
Governor, thank you.
Hold on. Okay, so there's the first batch. As you can see, the sink is almost empty. I like the little apples, people. I gotta watch this camera, right? Because they're like a Granny Smith, right? Sweet and bitter. You know, they got that bite to it, right? So anyway, now you cut them into pieces, put them in the pot, put your core in there. Oops. In there. That's all going. I'm going to show you later what I'm going to do with that. And then you start cooking it up. Hold on.